Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Is that better? Great. Thank you so much. And I know that you're really hungry, so hopefully we'll keep you going. Food for thought, so to speak, until we're able to break for lunch. But first, just a true honor to be sitting at this table with these incredible innovators that I have to the left and to the right of me, Lauren Croak, Margot Isadora, Lucy Jones, Aaron Isikoff from Aaron Snow, and Joshua Kutcher from Brave Gentlemen. And I think my goal is really to just nurture their voices, because I think when you hear what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they're leading in the fashion system is quite extraordinary. And I'm truly humbled. They truly are also really design leaders. But I would also like to really stress that I want to really talk around the word innovation today in this conversation, and what that means. I like the term paradox of innovation, because we, as a culture, particularly within fashion, tend to be very driven to results. We know what success looks like when we see it, but the road to getting there isn't always something that is easy. There's a time when there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a time when there can be some moments of failure, which then activate opportunity for learning. There's times when you may encounter roadblocks, which then I like to always look for an opportunity to reframe that into a chance to create. So I think that some of their stories we'll talk a little bit about that. As you heard this morning from Gary's amazing panelists, in his conversation leadership, we are in a time of change. You'd have to be living under a rock to not know that we're in a change imperative, but that the zeitgeist of the shifts create a lot of anxiety sometimes. Before I open up the conversation to everyone here, I just wanted to say that I always think about, in times of the unknown, of all things, an ad campaign from Apple that really I have in my head during certain times. It's from 1997 by Rob Stoltman, and as you may have seen the video, it talks about, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the pegs, the round pegs and the square holes. And it goes on, the ones who do things differently. And, again, going back to, we talk a lot about innovation these days, but getting there takes a lot of courage, a lot of perseverance, and a lot of resiliency. Lauren, I'd love to talk a little bit. Lisa introduced a bit of your bio, but maybe you can speak a bit more in depth about the last 25 years and what you're most excited about right now in 10 seconds. No, just kidding. Gosh. No, take all the time you like. But your journey has been extraordinary and truly visionary, and I know you're embarking on new chapters, and I'd just love for you to share.
Thank you. I think it started when I was a kid and used to, decide to do a tag sale at my house, and my mother was like, why are all these people on the front porch? And I was like, I need to clean out my closet. And she was like, oh God, okay. She was going to have her hands full. But I think I have had a very varied career in different roles. I was in human resources, and then I went into marketing. And then when I landed at Eileen Fisher, it's a culture, and that was 20 years ago, that was really built on innovation and entrepreneurship. So I've always been sort of guided by what feels like it's emerging as the future. There's something in my head where I can see how the dots connect. I may not be the technical expert in how to make those things happen, but I can figure out how to help things get off the ground and try to move them along. So one of the projects, and we'll talk about that later, is something that I got to work with Lucy on. And it was really about coming up through systems thinking how to truly have a closed loop for Eileen Fisher, and to put more emphasis on people and planet and a responsible sort of business for the future.
Thank you. And Margot?
Thank you. Hello, I have just graduated from Parsons in May, and thank you. And I was expecting to go the traditional fashion route. I grew up just outside of the city and took classes at FIT and interned my whole career, it feels like, through high school and college, and I expected to be an assistant designer somewhere. I'm a fashion designer, I'm a textile designer. But then the last month of school, and then a week after school, I had an interview with Donna Karan and was sent to Haiti for 2 months. Working as a designer with artisans in Haiti was not my plan after college, but it was a really incredible gift. So I am designing for Urban Zen's Naturally Haiti line. It's a completely artisan based collection. So I was on the ground for 2 months working hands-on, creating products from pottery to leather goods to horn products and jewelry. Really taught me a lot about the importance of materiality, using materials from specific countries, from Haiti in this example, and the importance of people, both in the making and in the end result. So I feel lucky to bring that collection to Coterie wholesale, to a larger market versus just our stores this past September it was now. And now we're moving forward with how to produce the artisan work on a larger scale.
That's quite an extraordinary professional GPS, Margot. One of my greatest pleasures at work, my colleague Anna Chase, sitting in the audience with me at the CFDA, we just every year have a program called CFDA Plus, and we interviewed almost 150 graduates from around the world, and this is just one example of what the future looks like. And sitting to my right is another example. Lucy?
Hello. Oh, good. I'm Lucy. I'm originally from Wales in the UK, and I moved to New York, and I actually really thought I was going to be the next Alexander McQueen when I moved. Everything changed when I moved here. What is the new Alexander McQueen nowadays, anyway? So I guess really short way into my education at Parsons School of Design, I graduated last year as Women's Wear Designer of the Year with not necessarily a collection. What it was, I guess, a systems approach of addressing our industry to allow for disability to be included into the design process from the very beginning. And it all started because my younger cousin has paralysis along one side of his body, and he told me it would change his life if he had a pair of trousers that he could do up with one hand. And I thought, well, we can do that. Like, we have the tools and the skill set. We know how to do that. So after I graduated, I was thinking, now where the heck am I going to apply these skills? And then I landed with Eileen Fisher. And I got to use my problem-solving abilities and one of the greatest leaders, I think, is Eileen Fisher. And working in a company with her for the past year has been sensational, emotional, invigorating, and I have just never learned so much. So, and I can explain a bit more about that later, but so that's how I ended up here. Thank you.
So I'm Erin Isaacoff, and I started Erin Snow 13 years ago, actually, and we were talking about, feeling a little early to the game. So I really struggled with design challenges and thinking about new ways to create clothing that has more of a purpose for a woman and your activity, how it performs for you, what it does, and how it impacts your health and the health of the planet. And so now it feels like the world is kind of coming alive with this conversation more, and what we do is feeling like there's more of a forum for it. And we have existed in the ski and the sport world, and now this world is collided very much with fashion, sport, and activewear. So I'm excited to talk more about it.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. My name is Joshua Katcher. I am an adjunct professor at Parsons, and in addition to that, I also founded the menswear line Brave Gentleman, which actually has just become a non-gendered line, so it's sizing for everyone, but in the menswear aesthetic. And we're in the process of opening our store in Williamsburg. We're doing demolition on our space on Monday. So come by Brooklyn and say hello to us. We're on Graham Avenue. how I got into this whole world is, it's kind of funny. I never imagined myself in fashion. In fact, when I started writing about fashion in 2008, I started a blog called The Discerning Brute, and it was more of a form of fashion criticism. And at the time, there was really no one addressing menswear and men's lifestyle through the lens of sustainability or ethics. And so I tried to create a platform for mainstream men to engage in the conversations around sustainability and ethics having to do with fashion and lifestyle without feeling like it was something only for the realm of the feminine. And then the brand emerged from that after writing and seeing that there was really nothing. Things that I wanted to buy didn't exist that met the criteria, the sustainability and ethical criteria that I had. So I decided to try to make it. And fast forward 8 years later, and now I'm teaching fashion, and I'm just finishing up a book about the history of animals and their use in the fashion industry.
Incredible. So, I mean, already you see that there's just an incredible amount of diversity and true leadership in the way that they're approaching their own journeys. And I want to start by just talking about systems, because we've used that word, I think, each of us probably about 5 times in the last 10 minutes. So what is the fashion system, and the notion of that, throughout my 24 years in various pinpoints of it, I think everything really is a system, whether it's materials or processes or business models, but that at the core are really the people driving the system, and we have various actors and agents. And so just going back to how diverse everyone's current trajectories are right now, I would love to hear, maybe we can begin with you, Lucy, about what your current view is of the fashion system. What is it? What's your view? Where are we going?
Yeah. So really great. No, I know. Wow. So to give you a little bit about where I am right now and what I am doing, because I'm working on many different projects. But the fashion system to me, like we talk about, are we too early? You said it too. Like, I think we're onto something, but I do feel a bit out of place, actually, because, like I said before, like, how am I applying this? So our system right now, I think it's safe to say it is a bit of a mess, our fashion system, and we're all trying to figuring out, the word millennial has come up a lot today, like the millennial, and
Very disruptive millennials.
yeah, very, very disruptive millennials, evil millennials. But actually, I do think we can learn a lot from this shift. And I think, working at Eileen Fisher was really proof of that. Because when you have a person like Eileen Fisher who wants to invest in this new shift that's coming out in design schools and sort of say, hey, we have this design problem, can you look at it? I really think that's how the shifts can happen, and I do think you can benefit your business through that. I'm sort of not knowing where I'm going with this, but I do think the investment is instead of looking and trying to think, how are they thinking, but give it to them and, try to work with that. And that's sort of what I did at Eileen Fisher. And now that I've left Eileen Fisher with sort of a lot more knowledge than I had when I graduated Parsons, what I get to work on now is I've been getting a lot of emails like, I have this problem, can you solve it? And they're the best kind of jobs that I think I can have, because I've genuinely been so bored by the fashion industry. And I really hate to say it because it was such a passion, but I really am sick of seeing the same things all the time. When you can log on Facebook and then you can go on YouTube and see genuinely what is going on in this planet. And I just think when I get projects like let's address the hospital gown, I'm thinking, now that is what I want to talk about. And really that is something, like patient dignity. Well, thanks. So honestly, I think healthcare is our next big thing. And I've been saying this for like 3 years now. But when I was doing my research with individuals with disabilities, and I really do hate saying disability because I do think it's just all bodies. Like, it's all bodies. We need to start addressing all bodies. And when you look at the US sizing now, the average woman is 16 to 18. It's not really translated very well anymore. So, and I mean, I'm going to keep rambling, but I just think that the system has changed. I still am figuring it out myself, but doing projects like the hospital gown and gloves for wheelchair users or something so sort of what would seem quite random is the way forward for me. So, yeah.
Erin or Joshua, I know you both have so much focus on technology. Anything that Lucy just said resonate with you, or?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So my biggest interest right now is also health, but for a different reason. I'm thinking about and wondering about how our health is impacted by the materials on our skin and what happens when you start sweating in those materials, what happens when you move in them, and what are you absorbing into your body. These questions haven't really been asked or vetted or tested, but I think about it a lot. And so, and I wonder, I'm one of the brands in the CFDA's fashion initiative right now, and we're talking about sustainability and really on this massive ride, this journey, trying to improve the way that we make clothing and our processes and our sourcing. And so just thinking about, can we improve and think about what we're using on the material level, and do consumers, do they care? And is this perhaps the thing that will trigger more concern among consumers? Will they start thinking about, just the same way in the food industry, people now think a lot about organic food and what are they eating and how does it impact their bodies. In clothing, we're trying to figure out right now, how do we change the way that our customers react to clothing? It's not just a pretty dress anymore hanging on a rack. We want them to see past that and think about and ask those questions. Where was it made? How was it made? What is it made from? And how do we communicate that to our consumers? So I'm wondering, is one way by making that connection between, people may not make a personal connection with the environment, but they certainly would with their own body and their human, the human health. So I'm thinking a lot about that right now. I don't know if you
Thanks. Yeah. Well, picking up on what you said about this pretty garment that's hanging on the rack, or this handsome garment that's hanging on the rack, this is a system problem that we have in the fashion industry. And when we talk about systems, we're really talking about, quite literally, the fashion industrial complex, which is a global complex of industrial activity. And there's also the fashion media industrial complex, which is where we see all the marketing and the advertising, and the idea that something that looks good doesn't communicate the truth of what's behind it is not a new idea. I actually just pulled up one of my favorite quotes. Tolstoy said, "What a strange illusion it is to suppose that beauty is goodness." And that's a real problem that we face in the fashion industry, because we make these beautiful objects, and we automatically assume that the beauty is therefore good and ugly is therefore bad. But there's so much more behind that. Can a beautiful garment that was made in a sweatshop or made with toxic materials, or that took 40 animals to make one garment, is that beautiful? And that's a question that we have to ask from a systems standpoint. So that's just what I wanted to.
So in many ways, systems thinking within fashion is really holistic. It's connecting the dots between your supply chain. It's thinking about the D and the B together. It's about really looking at the whole view, not just the end product or service, but how you got there, and every person or environment that's impacted or connected to it. Lauren, you have been leading out, you have over 2 decades of experience at Eileen Fisher, and in the past few years, all of these conversations have become a bit du jour. I mean, what has this been like for you to witness, but more importantly, getting there? I mean, this has been a long, long road. So what is that like?
It was making me think, listening to everyone talk, is in systems thinking, there's sort of a logical way also of how do you balance a system? It's like if you just keep putting more into, I don't know, poor manufacturing, then the result is going to be some impact on environment or people. So there's an actual sort of strategic way of thinking about systems thinking before you even break it down to the materials or the marketing or where you want to sell. And it's not easy. It takes a lot of practice to understand, if if I use more sustainable materials, okay, so maybe my costs go up. But then if my costs go up, then maybe I have to charge more. And then, what's the message that has to get out that sort of justifies these things? But so to even move into that way of thinking so that you can start looking at your supply chain, you can start looking at your partners and whether you're going to go wholesale or retail or just on the web or all three, it's mammoth. And I think it's easy to not want to step into it because it's really, you have to keep at it to understand what the impact is and where you want to influence something. And I think change is all about, the biggest change happens when you can influence the change, not just kind of step in and make it, because it has been an idea that Eileen had when she started the company about wonderful fabrics. She wanted to make sure, that things were manufactured in the right ways, and finally putting some real goals and saying by the year 2020 we want to be here helps you to put more of that focus on things. But it's not easy, and you have to keep at it. And I think the interesting thing about what's happening with technology, I led all of our digital and web and e-commerce, and I was a leader in the retail space, is the brands that are coming out that can start online, there's something about a reset, that there's so many established brands out there, and it's hard. You've built up a structure or a system just to support your department stores or to support your retail stores or to support your web. And then when you have to kind of try to pull that all back and hit the reset button for a company that's been around for 100 years or 20 years or even 30 years, it takes endurance, it takes a passion to really want to make sure what you leave as your footprint is going to be better than when you stepped into it.
Margot? Sarah mentioned connecting the dots. And for me, that's a buzzword at Urban Zen. I worked at a center called The Dot in Haiti, which stands for Design, Organization, and Training. And so Donna Karen's, perfect intro. I know you didn't plan that. Maybe did. So Donna Karen has been working in Haiti since the earthquake 6 years ago. So she got there with the Clintons and was looking to how to interact and help and integrate. And she realized the artisan talent there, and she knew she had to bring that here. So she started meeting artisans, creating her network, and developing product, which was sold in Urban Zen stores for the last 5 years. But then she realized that in order for them to get to the next level and to truly create the orders and sustainable jobs for these incredible Haitian artisans, that their level of quality control and design had to be brought to the next level in order to interact and compete on this global market. So that's when she connected the dots. As Lucy was speaking about before, the importance of investment in Parsons, investment in students in this evil millennial generation that some people speak of. Because there are change makers, there are people that want to make a difference. But for a young designer like me, how would I ever get to Haiti or get to any country and work with artisans? So Donna and Parsons invested in this center. The Dot is part of a huge warehouse that's actually a t-shirt factory. And we use some of the t-shirts to make, Paula Coles, my Haitian boss, has an incredible line of woven bags from the t-shirt scraps of that factory. But now it's our studio space. So it's fully decked out with materials and tools and woodworking tools and sewing tools and whatnot that can elevate and teach artisans how to improve their craft. So a horn artisan last year learned how to use a drill press, which is a woodworking machine that I have nothing to do with, but my colleague, who's an industrial and product designer, also a graduate of Parsons, Lucy's year, taught him how to use it. This year we come back to Haiti, and he's bought his own drill press. It's increased his production, his productivity, and the quality of what he can create. So whether it's on a basic level of me teaching a skill in macrame or in some kind of block printing or something, the interaction that we have with the horn artisan who's been working for his entire life in this one discipline is incredible for me from a material and knowledge perspective. But it's also really important that we bring a skill set to improve their product to the area it needs to be. And then the relationships, you're talking about people and the importance of people. And that's everything I did in Haiti. I mean, I love Haiti and its people because of my loved ones, artisans, and friends there. people look at Haiti. I mean, we just got hit with Hurricane Matthew. My work went from design to business, and now I'm working foundationally. So the education I've gotten in that expansive realm, I think is really crucial. And I think that we are problem solvers, like Lucy said, and it's really important to look at as designers as that and understand that they can work and want to work in a variety of ways.
It's incredible. We were talking before the panel about the power of we versus the power of I, and I think there's been a lot of talk around collaboration and action evidence through those snapshots of what everyone here is working on. I want to move on and ask the panel about their relationship at the moment with technology, because I think that's always been a key driver of innovation. And back to my Steve Jobs and the quote, and how that is not only leading us in design, but I think leading us as a society. And Joshua, do you want to kick off on that?
I'm excited to talk about that because I think that we are on the brink of some really exciting innovations that are going to change the industry in ways that are kind of difficult to wrap our heads around right now, where our entire industrial model is going to be inverted. And not only that, and when I say that, I mean picture a factory and you have all these products sort of moving out from the factory out into the world. And we're moving into a place where we're going to be producing in our homes with 3D printers and bioprinters, and we're going to be downloading programs to print garments at home or to have a little machine that knits for you at home. And it isn't just the technology that's changing, it's also it isn't just the hardware that's changing, it's also the materials. One of the most exciting things that I think is happening is something called cellular agriculture. And cellular agriculture is a way of growing animal materials in the laboratory without a being attached to it. So growing leather in the laboratory, growing wool. Already on the market is bioagriculture made spider silk. So a company like Spiber or Bolt Threads, they've synthesized spider silk in the laboratories, so they don't need spiders involved in the process, and they're able to make it at scale. And so we're going to start to see all of these animal materials being replacing a more traditional form of agriculture, which hits two really important problems, the problem of sustainability and the problem of ethics, where we've been told for years by the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization that the single greatest cause of the worst environmental problems is livestock. And that means cattle, that means cows, leather, sheep, wool, that these have the greatest ecological impacts. And I actually have a question, if anybody knows, does anybody know what the most significant impact material that exists according to latest data is? Does anybody want to take a guess? The number one most impactful material? What fabric, yeah. Cotton. It's actually cashmere. Cashmere has according to Kering's new EP&L, cashmere has the highest environmental impact of any other material, which is kind of crazy. So there is an urgency to replace these materials, and I'm really excited about cellular agriculture.
I'm very excited about cellular agriculture. Wow.
That's a good question. I mean, we would. It depends on what it's made from, and how it's made, right? If it's all plant-based, in theory, yeah, it would be safe. If it's cellular and
it's biologically
right,
identical. So,
right.
Yeah.
So we're working on something interesting now. I didn't develop it. I'm just putting the pieces together. I always feel like, when you're designing, it's like. It's finding the best recipe, right? It's like, let me find the best fabric, the best lining, the best this, that, and the other, put it together with the right pattern, and that's your winner. So I didn't create the technology, I'm just putting it together in the right recipe, but working on an animal-free down outerwear piece, right? So it exists. There's been insulation out there, synthetic insulations for a long time, but they're getting better and better and better and better. And now they come in the form of loose kind of down, and they perform better than down in a lot of ways, because when they get wet, they don't lose their warmth rating at all. And so imagine if you could, so there are a lot of systems that get created trying to kind of improve bad systems that exist already. So, okay, we have wool. Wool is problematic. Wool can be actually not problematic if it's done well. It can be actually good for the environment. But let's say, right, the general wool industry is problematic. Okay, so then right now there's an organization that's trying to come up with a wool standard, and same thing with down. You have Patagonia and North Face competing, trying to figure out the best way to regulate down sourcing. And really what you're trying to do is make a bad problem slightly better, and it's almost impossible to ensure that even with these standards in place, that they're being followed from the farm where geese are walking around or sheep are grazing all the way through to the end garment, and for someone to physically be there and watchdog every step of the production. So you can come up with a system, but then to even enforce the system is still problematic. So for myself, I say, okay, you know what? Why not just eliminate the problem? Let's just avoid using down. Why do we need it? We don't really need it anymore. There are good alternatives. So being a small brand that's not 100 years old, that doesn't have a huge infrastructure in place and mountains to move, I can decide one morning I'm not going to use down anymore. I'm not going to use any animals anymore. Period. Done. And I can make that decision, and then that's the rule at Erin Snow from now on. And I feel like I have a good alternative. So rather than trying to improve a bad problem, it's let's find an actual solution that's not just a better version of a bad thing. Right. Yeah. So there's maybe some movement from people speaking out on. Yeah. Exactly. Further along your movement. Exactly. I think the biggest change in business, in fashion, period, is the internet. And I think the way we communicate now. So we've existed for a long time, but before I started Erin Snow, I worked. Kind of had a more of a traditional fashion background. Well, before that, I was a public policy major at Brown and studied political and social activism. So now it's all coming full circle for me. But yeah. But my dirty secret was every summer I went to work at Theory, and I loved it, and I couldn't. I upset my poli-sci professors at Brown, but instead of going and becoming a human rights lawyer, I went to work at Theory at LA Tahari after I graduated from Brown. And so got a little off subject, but anyway. So back to this question, and now I think the interesting thing is we have an opportunity to talk directly to our customers, and we can tell our story a lot better. When I started the business, I went wholesale channel, traditional also, and we were selling in coat departments and things like that, and then we sell to sporting goods stores, now we have this opportunity, so that's what we're working on. We're trying to find that voice. And part of the CFDA initiative is really now kind of focused on, I think this is the next phase of our program is talking about storytelling, because we people don't know. And the question is, do people care? I hope, but that's what we're trying to gauge.
Enough negative press for the company for them to
Right.
start or already making changes. I actually can't confirm. But
Right.
I think you see that kind of negative feedback on
Right.
Twitter, Instagram.
Right, and can Canada Goose, it's called Canada Goose, can they stop using geese?
Right.
I don't know, can they? Maybe they should. But, I think it's hard for brands that are rooted in a product or in a process that's, it's almost impossible to make it 100% safe.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. The internet creates a demand for an end to opacity. It's the culture of transparency, but traceability, it's not always easy to do, and we're still not in a space where 100% is achievable, right? Lauren, this is really your.
I was going to jump in too about
sorry.
that, because the panel prior to brought up here and there about analytics and data, and I think that is huge, and it marries so well with technology. And so yes, there's a lot you can learn about your customers, and that might feel a little creepy, but if it also helps to kind of help you be smarter producers, maybe you don't produce as many, extra small t-shirts. The more you understand about the demand, the more you might be able to kind of solve that markdown problem, right? Like, so if you made to order based on what somebody wants in a geographical area, it helps you to produce less, which may have less impact on the environment. You are meeting the needs of the customer right there and not walking her and saying, I can't get you that size. I was working on something called Store of the Future before I left the company, and it was really about trying to think way far ahead, and it's actually not so far ahead. So when we talk about things like artificial intelligence or, 3D printing, inside your companies, it's sort of like, we don't need that, and we're not going there, but it's like, but the world is, the way that we communicate, the way we connect, the way we're going to consume things is going to change. So what are those really sort of, things that you can't even begin to get your arms around? What do they mean right now for how, the way that we think about technology and we use it can start to change our minds? And so we were talking out in the hall, and you brought up this app that you think is being developed, but I just think it's so interesting. And when I did this project, it was for our 30th anniversary, I wanted to make sure we focused on our people and our planet and our practices, and that's where this project came up with the CFDA, was about solving a problem. But just bringing in these design students who are coming out of school, it's very interesting. It's sort of like mastering all of these things and sort of owning the 360 from what it means to be a designer, and sort of seeding the world with this amazing talent that's coming out of schools, I think is tremendous. And it's, the technology aspect of connection is huge. So I don't know if you'll tell that story just about the program that's being used with design students to be able to trace their impact.
And the desire among students is incredible. I teach one of the senior thesis classes at Parsons, and the students, they are distraught with the idea that they have to enter the mainstream fashion industry. They have had the previous, several years to explore the possibilities. What is actually possible based on the technology we have now, and how does that compare to the reality of what the fashion industry is doing? The fashion industry, I think, has this illusion of looking very progressive and very edgy, but when you strip away the aesthetics, it's very conservative and very slow to change. And that's frustrating for them, and they want this change so bad. They want to be able to employ this education that they've been able to acquire. But so Kering, the luxury conglomerate, they spearheaded this new EP&L, which is the environmental profit and loss that I mentioned earlier. And along with that data, they're developing an app. And that app will have a designer interface and a consumer interface where it's a very thorough and holistic way of mapping and understanding impacts in fashion, social impacts, environmental impacts, and their own data has been used for the first time about this season by Stella McCartney. She was the first to employ this whole scheme. So it's really exciting to see this unfold and see what's going to happen with this new data. It really has the potential to set some very broad standards that we have been lacking. There's a lot of third-party organizations and labeling schemes that are here and there, and there's no consistency. And I think this, coming from inside the industry and coming from such a large and respected organization, will have some significant impacts.
So I think it's clear technology is enabling us to move faster, if agilely, but definitely faster if sometimes we're improvisational about what we do. But is there a price to pay? I mean, if we're able to move so fast, what if you get there too early? Is there a downside of innovation if you're too far ahead?
I mean, I was like 13 years too early on most things that I've done. But luckily, the same pants that I designed in Blue Sign certified fabrics 10 years ago are still our bestseller today. So, part of our philosophy is that I'm not designing a style that is gone in a few months. It's something that remains in our collection, and it's a staple piece, and you shouldn't theoretically, I design for longevity, and a garment that's going to last a lifetime and can be reused and reused and is more kind of simple in kind of concept and aesthetic. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think I told you this anecdote on the phone when we were chatting. So 10-ish years ago, I met with Michael Fink from Sex, and I was going on and on about this technology and my fabrics and how cool this is, this raincoat that I designed and developed. It was a double-face cotton. It was Blue Sign certified. You could reverse it. It was phenomenal. It had amazing memory, all these things. I'm going on and on and on. And he looked at me and he said, I get it. I think it's really cool, but Our Lady does not care, and she just wants to know how it looks on the hanger, and that's it. And I just was like, this is just, this takes all the excitement out of designing and trying to be innovative. If you're telling me that that's it, okay, this is it, the door is closed and nobody cares. So it's been 10 years really now. People seem to be starting to care a little bit about what your garment does for you, more than just what it looks like and how it was made.
It's a marketing problem, right?
Yeah, it's a marketing problem, right? I mean,
Where it's like on your skin or whatever. Because once you bought this product and you dry clean it, what then happens, because somebody has to clean their clothes, and not everything is like, wash with woolite or put in your
right. So
washing machine. So then what happens to your product that you put all this hard work into and now somebody dry cleans it?
So everything I make is machine washable for that reason. It's a huge problem. Dry cleaning is a massive problem, and for the most part, there are amazing textiles out there that don't need to be dry cleaned. So it's another one of those things. Don't use feathers, don't use dry cleaning. You just have to make those rules.
I think we have a question.
Yeah, I have a comment that I'd like to get your reaction to. First of all, I'd like to say it's just really wonderful from a person of my age to see enthusiastic young people coming into the fashion industry in different ways. And I think this has been a great event in which we're looking in a sort of holistic way at fashion and what it does. One of the things that I think it makes a lot of these issues very complicated, and we're hearing very little discussion about this that concerns me, is the impact on human beings and on working people and the economy. And I was at an event 2 days ago where there was a speaker about robotics who raised, and this is where he makes a living, investing in robotic companies, and where the worker is ending up here and in the world. And when we think of innovation, and we talk about the internet, how great it is that the consumer can connect directly, that sales associate who can make a decent living, and maybe with their spouse or partner doing that, can make a decent living, is getting replaced by a person stuffing a box in Amazon at minimum wage, and how that person who also maybe is on an assembly line is getting replaced by a robot. And so I wonder what all of you think, and whether in this equation with a populace that's very angry here, where I see the situation just getting worse, whether you think about that in the equation of what innovation means and what the effect is on society at large.
I mean, I think absolutely. Really always thinking about, as Lauren said, people, planet, profit, triple bottom line thinking, human capital has to come first. But I think there's another side with the conversation of technology, that on that paradigm is how that can increase optimize efficiencies, and if there's some way to maintain human value first and foremost, but still integrate new systems that can enable the people to create more and more meaningful things. But Margot, maybe with your work with Urban Zen, I mean, people is at its core. I mean,
Yeah, people is at our core. And the Urban Zen is the Urban Zen retail and fashion brand, but we're also a foundation. So we focus on healthcare and culture and artisan work. So I think that the fact that more companies are wanting to invest in this and are able to invest in it on the level of Eileen Fisher or of Donna Karan, Stella McCartney is another example. I think that it's really exciting that luxury fashion is seeing that as an issue and is wanting to bring that to the forefront. So we were at Coterie at the Javits Center, which is a huge fashion trade show. We were selling our Naturally Haiti line, which is accessories and home products to people who are coming to buy clothes. But we did well in terms of our orders, but the most important thing was having the conversation and saying, yes, this horn necklace, I know the artisan who made it, and this is the process it goes through. And that storytelling is what these retailers want these days. People who have the means to spend money on these luxury goods want something different, want something unique. So the fact that we can tell the personal story and they know where it's coming from in the whole supply chain, because I am the designer myself and selling the product. Working with Hurricane Matthew recently, some organizations, you're sending money to Haiti or to a country, you don't know where it goes. I know exactly the meal bag that it went to or the medicine because we have partners on the ground. And I think people are realizing, people want to know where their money goes, whether it's charitable or retail-based, or if it's that gorgeous dress you're buying. So I think it's about getting your message out there about why it's so important to help these people. And it's not charity we're doing at all. It's work. That's very, very important to me. Like, I'm not doing a charitable project. I'm working with talented artisans to create a product that will create sustainable jobs for them. That's why they respect and love Donna so much and brought me in welcomingly, because she's created sustainable orders every year for every season for them. And then we're just expanding it to wholesale right now. So I think it's important that the story is told, and because the consumer wants to know. And especially consumers who are willing to spend that money, they're willing to pay, from my point of view. Of course.
Oh, sorry. Go, Lauren.
Okay. And I would just say, to back up what you were saying too, is looking at technology more as sort of taking some of the noise out of what we're talked about in the retail stores. Like, how do we make our retail stores become a place of connection and community? I think that's the future. Yes, I think technology is supposed to help us sort of navigate things and make our lives easier. Banking, I don't know, ordering your groceries. My idea of a store of the future is this sense of bringing the designer into the store, bringing sewers into the store, being able to sort of sew on demand, and having a place where people could come in and learn how to do that. So I think that there is still a place for people, for sure. And, there's things like water is a huge issue, just in terms of what we're making. So I think the more that we can use technology to kind of help us make better decisions, but make sure, that there is the storytelling aspect behind what you do and why you do it, I think is going to be the, it's like a business term. It's your, the thing that makes you unique. You're unique, you're UVP, your unique value proposition. And so I'm hopeful in that sense.
Yeah, you kind of stole what I was going to say. Eileen Fisher. No, I was going to elaborate. I don't see why technology and human hand and jobs can't go hand in hand. And I also think that there should be craft and tradition is so important. We cannot kill that. We cannot kill those cultures. But there is no way that they cannot live together. And I think that, and I'm thinking about my Eileen Fisher project. It was called Remade in the USA. And what we did was, Eileen Fisher has a take-back program where any Eileen Fisher can bring back any Eileen Fisher garment, no matter what state it's in, and we'll get $5 for each garment. And we had a new technology that we were using on our production. So what we had to do was we had 80,000 garments that couldn't be resold. So what do you do with that? Like, they're just sitting in a warehouse and they're not being used because they're damaged, they've got holes, they've got pit stains. And we sort of were like, oh my God, look at this mountain of clothes that we have to work with. But because of technology, we were able to create a new sort of fabric that ended up being called artisanal because of its beauty, and it needed the person to be feeding it through in a specific way. And I think that's how they can go hand in hand, and I think there's evidence. And when you talk about technology, like on that level of like, you know, what was it? Yeah, there's so many different types of technology. Then there's internet technology, there's that technology, and then there's machine technology.
This is true, but I just want to say one thing, and I don't want to be a doomsayer or totally negative, because obviously there are a lot of things about technology that I enjoy. Someone said to me when I mentioned this, and they said, well, look, we went from the horse and buggy to the car. That's true. And for the horse and buggy, there was the person who was transporting somebody, and they were driving the horse and buggy. And then they went into the car, and they became a taxi driver. But what happens when Uber has taxiless, driverless cars? So my concern is, are we reaching a point, and it's obviously beyond the control of all of us in this room, are we reaching a point where technology and artificial intelligence may be putting large numbers, and there are people writing about it in the New York Review of Books, and I forget, I forget what her name is, Sue something, who's written a book about it. Are we getting to a point where we're going to talk about disemploying very, very large numbers of people through innovation that is great innovation, but has this impact? And that's all. I don't want to take over the whole panel.
Okay, so I was taking like rapid notes very quickly during this whole little discussion. So I think your question really is more thinking about what happens to the retail store, right? What happens to all these amazing people who've been your touch point, you know, the person who sells the garment, and what happens when technology, you know, there's a shift obviously in the system. In my experience, in our business, we are obviously growing our e-commerce. It's the fastest growing part of our business. It's the fastest growing part of everyone's business. But we are choosing to maintain key wholesale accounts because it provides marketing to our brand. We're mostly in sporting goods stores, ski shops, things like that. So we work with Montage hotels. It's been phenomenal for us because we're a small brand. It brings people to our brand. Then they may go home and shop us online, but it provides an introduction. So those key retailers we keep. And then we also, because these are basically specialty stores, we do a lot of training, and the great salespeople in the stores are still great salespeople, and they still serve a huge purpose if they are on board and telling that story. And if the brands are there educating the salespeople in the stores like they should be. So that maintains, but I would say that the bigger stores I work with that are hugely successful, that are riding this transition, are the ones that have their own online businesses. So stores that have their own amazing e-commerce, so retail stores that have started growing online, they're the ones who are succeeding. And then the other side to this that isn't really being talked about is the fact that the human capital of manufacturing and fashion has been horrifically undervalued on the manufacturing side for decades. So people were working in sweatshops in horrible conditions, and now because of technology, this is all being exposed, and now because of this push for artisanal products and storytelling and all of these amazing things, we're bringing humanity back to fashion, and all these lives that were very much undervalued are now being elevated in profound ways. So it's a balance, you know, and in order to survive, everyone has to innovate, including the retail shops.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've been given the signal that we're over time. I want to just rapid fire ask the panel to conclude by answering, in this time of creative Darwinism and paradigm shifts, what matters most to you as you keep going through your journeys? Joshua, what matters most?
What matters most? Geez. Well, okay. So the blazer that I'm wearing is from my collection, and it looks and has sort of a hand feel of being a tweed, but it's made from waste diverted cotton and waste diverted poly that was pulled from the waste stream in Brazil and milled in a mill that specifically employs women who need living wage jobs. And what's that?
I know.
So, and the lining, the silk is made from recycled soda bottles and water bottles, and this is milled in Turkey. So the thing that I'm excited about right now is that I can have this tiny little brand in Brooklyn, and it has become an international brand because of technology. We can ship everywhere. We can also source from everywhere. These are materials that are coming from Brazil and Turkey and Italy and India, and the ability to curate and control and maintain your standards, your ethical standards. I think that's what's driving me, and that's what's pushing me, and I'm so excited to see what the next 5 years are going to bring.
Thank you, Tasha. Erin?
I'll keep it brief. I'm just excited that everyone is starting to care, and there's communication, and things like this are happening, and conversations like this, and hopefully our customers will also really, really start to engage.
Thank you. Lucy?
Yeah, quick. So for me, it's also about people. And just want to leave you with a little something. And years and years ago, designers used to have a muse, and they used to have someone who they would look up to. Well, nowadays, my partner has muscular dystrophy, and I will test my work with her. And in a way, I hate to say she's inspiring or she's my role model, because I just don't want to think of her in that way, but she is so important for my designing and for my problem solving. So it really is about people, and that's where I'll just leave that.
Margot?
As young designers, we can't afford to make things anymore. We have to make things with purpose. So I feel lucky to be working with a brand who's making things with purpose.
Lauren?
I would just say ditto.
Thank you so much. It's truly great to hear all of your voices. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you to my colleague again, Anna Che, who helped put this all together. So thanks. Time for lunch.